You know, people are always talking about the 60s and how great it was because there was this vast underground culture. I think we've got several very good underground cultures.
Yeah.
You bet! You bet!
There were the computer hackers, the reality hackers.
Have you ever experienced any of the acid tests?
The what?
Any of the acid tests, like the
Merry Pranksters used. Well, Ken Kesey, I guess, used to throw big
his
acid
kind of
parties
things,
at his
they were
farm.
called acid tests. I've read about them, but
Electric Kool-Aid acid test. I guess Tom was.
No, nobody ever gave me acid without telling me I was getting acid.
That's good.
well, see, you seem to know Timothy Leary really well. The experiences I've read about Timothy Leary seems just out there. Like he was very dosed, let's say, but really good about his experience, real graphic and stuff. And I would assume that you had like experiences or.
Yeah, I think I understand them pretty well.
What was your experience with Art Clip?
Hard clip, yeah. Boo-hoos or whatever.
Oh, that was
The Neo-American Church. He was out.
that was a minor.
Yeah, he was in the guest house out at.
Yeah, I didn't meet him when I was at Millbrook. He came later, or he wasn't there that day, or he was out in the guest house or something. When Illuminatus was published, for some reason unknown to me, Klebs took it in his head to write several magazines that Robert Anton Wilson and Robert Shea did not exist. That the book had been written by Leary, and this was just two pen names he invented to conceal the fact he'd written the book so he could avoid paying taxes on the royalties. And I don't know what the hell, why Klebs did that, but I wanted to sue him for libel.
He was following a Reese.
Well, I wanted to sue him for libel, not that I had any malice against him. I knew he was on welfare and we couldn't collect anything from him. But I thought if we sued him for libel, we'd get a lot of publicity and that would help the sales of Illuminatus. Shea is a doctrinaire anarchist who doesn't believe in going into the courts under any circumstances. He wouldn't join me in the suit. I told him he was amusingly rigid. And he told me many young ladies have said the same. And I figured he won that exchange.
I thought it was so groovy that he's so in anarchism, but his portrayals of characters of power in Shike, as well as in his other, he has so much insight into. Like, I found Kubla Khan just so believable, and rulers of Japan, and I think people might read that novel and not. Because there's no overt anarchist speeches in there about, you know, all power to the workers or whatever, but the insight that he has into power sort of leads to that. But
yeah, Shea sort of keeps his anarchism for his news. He has a little magazine he publishes 4 times a year called No Governor, and he puts all his anarchist propaganda in there. And his novels are written deliberately to be commercially acceptable to a large population without offending anybody.
Offhand, would you have the address for that?
Oh, sorry.
No Governor?
No Governor. I probably have an address somewhere for it, but
I don't have it memorized.
well, the cover for Shike was so slick. I wasn't sure it was the same Robert Shea. And then I started reading it finally, and the first number was at 23, and the first scene was an initiation. I said,
well, the interesting thing was, I mentioned it before, I was working at Walden's at the time, and they printed these small promotional booklets for it that were a passage from the book, and they were the initiation passage, which I thought was, you know, an idea got through, which is...
Yeah, Shea's magazine was named after a quote from Chong Chua that I used to use. I used to have a newsletter called I. That was back when I was in my phase of being a strict Stirnerite anarchist. Nothing exists except the ego. And be rude to everybody, take shit from nobody, and fuck them if they can't take a joke. You know, the whole Stirnerite system. That was part of a late adolescent rebellion that hit me in my 30s.
No, I was under the impression that was a Mayerite.
yeah.
What?
I think Tom Mayer stole it.
Yeah, we were talking about
Maybe
that.
he's channeling Max Stirner.
Yeah, Max Stirner wrote a book called The Ego in His Own, which is based on the philosophy that every moral code can be shown to have logical flaws in it if you pretend it's based on reason, which is absolutely accurate. From which Stirner deduces, since no moral code is based on reason, it's every man for himself, get what you get, you know?
Well, those three dictums are Tom Mayer's rules of life.
What are?
Be rude to everyone, take crap from no one, and fuck them if they can't take it back. We were talking about that at Finnegan's.
Well, anyway, when I was publishing Stirner, right, anarchist...
bricks of gold now. Bricks of gold for a copy of that.
When I was publishing I used to print in almost every issue a quote from Joe on Jua, there is no governor anywhere. But I printed that so often that it inspired Kerry Thornley to print up cards saying there is no enemy anywhere. And I printed up cards saying there is no friend anywhere, and that worked its way into Illuminatus eventually.
And I want the bumper stickers, the patriotic bumper stickers with like, what was the
Knights
slogan?
of Christianity United.
Fuck communism.
That was it. Yeah.
In red, white, and blue.
Now, I
Also, anybody could object to that. It's the most patriotic sentiment you can put on your card.
I also want to do perfect counterfeits of, you've seen the bumper stickers on Volvos everywhere, the neon blue with white lettered stickers that say visualize world peace.
No.
Yeah, I want to do a perfect counterfeit, except it's going to say visualize world conquest. Remote control, PO5.
Yeah. Well, there's one I saw that's in fact sheet 5, visualize
Yeah, visualize impeachment. It's being done.
Well, I did a column in the Berkeley Barb in which I suggested everybody, every time they see a politician on television, visualize his pants falling down in the middle of the speech. And understand this is a magic act, which means the things that he most wants to conceal will be discovered by somebody in the media. And since I published that, a lot of people must have been doing it, because all these secrets have been coming out ever since.
You familiar with the Christic Institute and their suit against the government for a secret team that has been behind what they call, quote, the small dirty wars going on around the world? And
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
They apparently had findings leading to the Iran-Contra thing 6 months before it broke in the media. Are suing like Secord and I forget all the top mercenaries in the group. But I don't know that this is leading to a question or not. Other than, are you familiar with it? And you've already answered that. Apparently, there were a couple of people from that group speaking at Scottsdale Community College a while back. I do wish I had seen it. I very much like your statement that anyone with any intelligence realizes it's not going to be the politicians if they get anything accomplished. But they can be such a deterrent, they can be such a roadblock.
They're one of the many roadblocks in the way. But they're only one of many.
Well, that's a cheering thought.
Just learn how to move around better.
That's right.
Not easy.
No governor. Or mayor, for that matter.
Speaking of world domination, the World Power Foundation, that's all bullshit, isn't it? I don't believe that. I don't believe that from the start. That's just a way to introduce a bibliography. That's what I see it as being.
I caught on to that real fast. This is a guy who, a frustrated college student who's read too much Machiavelli and John Norman.
A little aside, you gotta throw a little bit aside on things.
his Nazi
I thought
slave
the thing
women
about food
overall.
You know, I used to like
Cryptic.
this. The early ones were good. For an adolescent teenager.
In an Aristotelian sense.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's a current of modern philosophy that is accepted by a large part of the ruling class, evidently, to judge by their actions. And it's been espoused by Max Stirner and Ragnar Redbeard and whoever this guy is who wrote the World Power Foundation.
Yeah. No, my favorite line out of that, and I have a recruiting poster for the World Power Foundation that I'm going to be putting out. It has 3 heavily armed helicopters coming forward, and the line is from them. Might and right may not be exactly the same thing, but after a few years, no one knows.
Yeah, somebody said Reagan's policy on Panama is we stole the canal fair and square, so it's ours.
Same with Nicaragua. We stole that fair and square, and that's ours.
Yeah, that's the doctrine time is the great legalizer. To which Herbert Spencer replied, at what rate per annum does injustice become justice?
It was 3.5 guaranteed. The flexible rate will go up to 8.5% depending upon the standard interest rates in the country.
That sounds like a deal. Any new doings with Priory of Sion or P2?
Well, I have an article about that on Melodious Gnosis.
Yes, I read that.
The only new thing that's come up since then, I heard a rumor that Lichio Jelly surrendered deliberately, and I couldn't understand that. That was really bending me out of shape. Why the hell would Jelly surrender deliberately? That turns out to be an inaccurate rumor. I've had somebody finally sent me a newspaper story. He was captured again on one of his visits to Switzerland, and this time he did not escape maximum security prison. This time they returned him to Italy. So he's either going to face trial or commit suicide in his cell like Michele Sindona, one of his right-hand men, who cried out they poisoned me just before he committed suicide. The newspaper stories were rather fuzzy about what actually happened. Or he's going to escape again like he did for maximum security in Switzerland. When I was in Switzerland, I told everybody they should build up the tourist trade by putting 3 monkeys on the gate above that prison in Geneva. See no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil. There were 3 monkeys. And under it should say in classic German Gothic script, Ficken Sie nicht mit der Freimaurer. Don't fuck around with the Freemasons. They held Jelly for 3 days in what was considered the maximum security prison in Switzerland, and then he flew away like a great big bird and went to Uruguay. That was the first time.
I'm thinking that would make a good bumper sticker. I saw this card here in town with all these Freemason bumper stickers, and it had things like "Demole is okay." Really fun.
They got a lot of Campus Crusades for Cthulhu bumper stickers in Rhode Island. I break for Shoggoths. Have you hugged your Shoggoth today?
I've made extensive use of the stationery at the Campus Crusade for Cthulhu stationery. And that's some wonderful stuff.
I can relate that to Hollywood for you. What about At the Mountains of Madness? Don't you think that would be killer movie?
Oh yeah.
I think that would be anytime that can sell to the box office. So they want something that'll make money. At the Mountains of Madness will make money.
Well,
I'd like to direct The Shadow over Innsmouth before somebody else does it first and fucks it up.
I think the problem with Mountains of Madness is not that much action. It's mostly them walking through and seeing all these paintings and smelling things and wondering, and then finally they're chased at the end. But there's not a lot of action in the course of the story.
No, but they could do
car chases.
No ninjas.
No ninjas.
No ninjas.
NFL.
I don't know. It just lays out just such an intriguing history and stuff, and just seeing a huge catacombs with this gigantic art sets, and then you could do basically would play on the imagination so much. A lot of films, don't do that. That would bring the horror to it.
What do you think? It just literally filming the things, or having them fade back into flashback history sequences?
Yeah. Definitely. And the Frozen, I'd seen the Frozen thing at the beginning and stuff. That would definitely.
Well, you see, what bothers me is the thought that if the wrong people do Lovecraft, they're going to Hollywoodize it. And right now the demographics show that the three things that make a film a success are rebellion against authority, destruction of cars, and frontal nudity. So they would have to adapt that to Mountain of Madness so that half of the explorers are female, and that there are cars left over from this previous civilization, and they have to have mad car chases from the Shoggoths. And in order to run faster, when the cars don't run anymore, they all have to take their clothes off, and the government has to tell them to give up the expedition and come back, and one of them has to yell over the intercom to the government, "Fuck you, we're going ahead with it." And then you got a commercial film. You see, only Lovecraft has disappeared in the process.
Sold a lot of tickets, though. And isn't that what's really important? Have they got money?
We saw a Lovecraft film one time, Reanimator.
I saw that too.
When we saw that, Mark and I saw that, and we saw it in a theater that had just been painted.
Bright red seats.
Bright red seats, and the smell of turpentine just filled our lungs. And we watched this film, and it was horrible, wasn't it? It was horrible. It was horrible. We were in cinematic hell. It's a good film, but it was hell.
I've ever seen Conrad flinch at a film.
I saw it with some friends in Palos Verdes, and when the guy first started eating brains, one of my friends said, "Bet you can't eat just one." Then on, the whole film was hilarious. It degenerated into slapstick, and we were all laughing at it.
Well, I loved it when he couldn't keep the head upright, so he sticks it on the paper holder.
Well, I guess you could do Mass Illuminati. You have to have Sybil Danning playing Leva Einstein, and there'd be a big car chase at the end with Aleister Crowley, racing and chasing after Sir John Babcock.
Harrison Ford could play the
The Harrison Ford and Sir John
Roman
Babcock.
Polanski could direct.
And Pee Wee Herman is James Joyce.
What was that girl's line again? Indiana, who was that? Somebody Jones in the Temple of Cthulhu this afternoon. That was very good.
Oh, yeah,
Sue said that, didn't she?
Yeah.
She said one of my favorite. I think it was her that said one of my favorite lines of all time. We were watching Brother Jed at ASU, and she started chanting, doing a cheerleading thing, going, "There is only one God, and she is the sun god. Rah rah rah." And that was great. That stuck with me ever since then.
She sounds like a natural for Ladies Against Women.
Yeah, but she's got to have her husband sign, or co-sign.
People have given Phyllis Shapley so much shit, and deservedly so.
Yeah, we went and saw her when she came through here. That's hilarious.
Phyllis?
Yeah,
I've
we
got
were
a
in
great
the back.
book written by her on in favor of the M1 missile.
She debated some.
Yeah, that's what I seem to remember.
I didn't see it though.
Yeah, we were there.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, there was someone else there too, because I remember.
That year, our speaker series was John Anderson, Timothy Leary, Jerry Falwell, and Phyllis Schaefer.
Yeah, we saw that.
Wow.
And Tim Leary got more people than Jerry Falwell.
There was a crowd there for sure.
Yeah, and they didn't do any
That was
advertising.
very fun.
Whereas they booked Falwell to the huge auditorium. And Tim was in this little room in the student union, but he got more people than Falwell.
Yeah, while we're here, care to tear apart Jerry Falwell a bit?
Falwell
Just
bashing.
for fun? It's too easy a target. I know.
Yeah, everything funny that can be said about Falwell has been said already.
Well, he does most of it himself.
Yeah,
I was seeing some of this new press release for upcoming films and stuff. It struck me that it's impossible to satirize movies anymore as far as like, weird titles and stuff, because they're doing it all.
Yeah.
Beachside bimbos from space.
Surf Nazis must die. That's what I want to see.
Mars needs women. That's what I started it.
That's right.
Have you ever seen Switchblade Sisters?
No. I don't think I want to.
Well, no, it's really good because it's a reworking of Othello. It is. It's incredible. I saw it with a friend of mine at a drive-in where half the screen had been blown down by a tornado that was still going on. And it was worth it, though. It was worth risking life and limb to see this film.
That's a hilarious story.
It's great in a biker context, a biker chick context. It was a masterwork, and it looks good too. It's well made.
It's in color. I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, they have tripods.
They had actually a famous cinema photographer did the cinema photography. He did it for Where the Buffalo Roam. Tank Fujimoto or someone along those lines.
So you're enjoying the California lifestyle?
Oh yeah, very much.
That Pacific Rim culture.
Yeah.
What do you think of Arizona? You've been here a couple of days. Great governor.
It's great at this time of year.
Yeah,
From
it's
the
comfortable.
rumors I've heard, I'm not sure I'd like to come back in August.
You can guarantee it.
I was in Dallas last August. I devoutly hope to avoid similar places in August in the future.
No, I was there at the same time. I loved it. It was so cool, refreshing. It was like 105, it was great.
Yeah.
It was a vacation.
There was a nice breeze blowing.
I like being in Phoenix because the Phoenix is the bird of resurrection, and it was Crowley's secret name in the OTO. And Phoenix Park is the scene of most of the action in Finnegan's Lake, because the Phoenix means resurrection, because it's a pun. Because the park got its name, it was originally Finishka in Gaelic, and the English who didn't bother translating things, they just found the closest phonetical equivalent, so they changed it to Phoenix Park. But the Finishka in Gaelic means clear waters.
I know, and what was the pronunciation?
Finishka, clear waters. Fen is clear or blonde if it means a human being, or clear if it means water. Well, shining if it means the top of a hill. And Ishka means water, clear waters, the park of the clear waters, and it became Phoenix Park, so water turned into fire. Because the phoenix rises from its own burning nest. And so the whole name of the thing is the illustration of the alchemical process of turning the water into the fire, the alchemical furnace. And Joyce has a lot of fun working that into the structure of Finnegan's Lake. And Phoenix Park is the biggest enclosed park in Europe. I don't know what the biggest unenclosed park is. It's the biggest zoo I've ever seen. Most of the animals were donated by the Guinness family.
Does the Guinness family still have lots of money?
Yeah, they are.
Or
They are, as the English say, filthy, stinking rich.
Yeah, they're like the Krupp of beers, right? They're like the Krupp family of beers.
Yeah. Well, they not only have the beers, they have the Guinness Jazz Festival, the Guinness Book of Records. They put out other beers besides Guinness Stout, inferior ones for the tourists. And,
Which
Harp included.
whose names shall not be mentioned.
and they have all sorts of subsidiaries and whatnot. And they're all Freemasons. I read that in an article. An Irish business magazine had an article, how much do Freemasons control Ireland's economy? And the conclusion was they control most of it.
A whole bunch.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, we do.
Yeah, Allied Irish Bank, Bank of Ireland, Guinness, those are the biggest money makers.
Especially if he sees more Maryland chambers.
I read your piece in The Best of the Realist, describing working for a tabloid newspaper.
Oh, okay.
There must be some great stories to that.
Well, I think I told most of them in that Realist article. I worked for
I'll
that.
just rip that off then.
I worked for that schlock house for about a month. I got fired because I lacked the common touch, they said. They said my prose was too intellectual. It was a fascinating experience. I collaborated in writing their tabloid newspaper. We'd have a story conference Monday morning and we'd come up with all the stories for the issue. And everybody had in his office a list of names of cities which appeared in 5 states or more. And we'd only refer to the city without the state, so nobody, it would be very hard for anybody to check the story. And we invented them all at the story conference Monday morning. And my favorite of all of our inventions is still Mad Hunchback sells hunch to butcher, a woman poisoned by Hunchburger. And that one didn't make it. The publisher said it was too gross. But I thought it was our masterpiece. I thought it was the epitome of the schlock school of journalism. And sometimes perfection is too much for ordinary mortals. I also edited 3 girly magazines. No, 4. 3 cheap ones, and 1 on glossy paper.
Well, I saw your
and a
piece.
detective story magazine.
I saw your a piece you did on the Kabbalah in an issue of Gallery magazine many years ago. A friend of mine had a copy of it, and that's where I got the line that you were born in Hong Kong, because you have a bio section at the beginning of it, and have a great bio. It's far better than any of the ones I've seen recently.
Where was that?
Gallery magazine, an old men's magazine, an old copy of a men's magazine.
Was that in the
Jesus,
first
I don't know
issue?
what- I said I was
you
born
have
in
a
Hong
copy, you
Kong.
showed it to me.
Yeah,
What else did I say?
that's about all that I can remember.
I was obviously in a whimsical mood when I filled that film out. One thing nobody should do, because it's nasty and underhanded, you should not pick up extra tax forms at the post office and fill them in with fictitious names and address and put down figures that don't add up correctly. That'll keep the inspectors busy looking for people who don't exist and give them less time to find people who do exist. And that's sabotage, and it's un-American and unpatriotic, and I hope nobody does it.
At least not until after they've gotten their refund.
Now,
Well, you
that's-
got yours. You can rest easy.
Now, will they deliver those without the stamp? You don't have to spend any money on it.
It's worth 22
Well, then all
cents.
then all they'll do is
It'll equal 22
Not that you're
hours.
going to send in 200 of them. You really mess up the state of Arizona.
Make it federal.
A lot of
Make it
people
federal.
work at
No,
a
don't make it
Fitness
federal
machine
because you
and
don't want to be
that's
doing
what
that.
I'll
Huh? No, okay, that's about jobs.
Of course.
And there's your answer. Psychically divine.
I didn't answer that, but it was.
You could probably put that on pause.
Yeah.
Wearing this mind machine.
Quick, how many fingers?
Indeterminate.
Oh, you got it.
Good answer in Aristotelian sense.
Did you ever see any leprechauns when you were in Ireland?
Not a one. No pukas either.
Now, when I was in West Virginia, I kept looking for Mothman. So I really wanted to see Mothman.
You never saw him.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah, he was up on your car
I was
radiator.
taking the car one night, but, you know.
Well, nobody knows who built it or why. And it's a giant egg in the geometrical center of Ireland. And yeah, and you enter it through a long, narrow vaginal opening. You have to creep along, and you get to this inner chamber, which is also shaped like an egg, which is entirely covered with this Napoleon returning spiral. And midwinter day, December 21st, when the sun rises over the hill of Tara at the opposite end of the Boyne Valley and illuminates the Lia Foyle, the stone of destiny, which the Irish kings touched when they were being anointed. As it goes past that stone on top of the hill of Tara, it goes right down the central chamber of Newgrange, right down the entrance, and illuminates the whole central chamber. This was built 5,000 years ago. And my intuitive theory after being in there was that they were eating magic mushrooms all night, and when the sun illuminated the central chamber, that was the climax of whatever sacrament the Druids were doing, or the pre-Druids, whoever they were. It's really a heavy energy spot.
Well, speaking of reality tunnels, I found that when I was in West Virginia, you know, if you're looking for it, everywhere you go is strange. I got to West Virginia, which you say that and most people immediately think very backwards, nothing happens, etc., etc.
Inbreeding.
Oh, of course.
Inbreeding,
and
son.
And all of that is true.
Hell yeah.
All of that is true. But nonetheless, there's like the largest Krishna community in the country, located in Moundsville. And they were busily blowing each other up and killing each other over this dispute as to who ran the big golden temple. And there is also, they're located in Moundsville.
Religion is the greatest fomenter of hatred in the history of the world.
Well, that's
H.L. Mencken.
Yeah, and someone else has said, you know, the first thing you do when you're starting a religion is find somebody to hate. You need an enemy.
Them or us, buddy.
There is also, well, that was located in Moundsville, which has these huge mounds of ancient material debris, and there are also these caves, which some scholars claim are definitive proof that the Irish found America long before Christopher Columbus ever did, because there are these ancient
St. Brendan.
ancient Celtic Irish runes carved inside this cave in West Virginia.
The Irish believe that devoutly, most of them. St. Brendan got here first. Columbus came to Galway before he crossed the Atlantic to study St. Brendan's maps.
That is so?
No, it's a widespread belief in Ireland.
Okay.
I don't know. It's part of the Irish reality.
Guinness.
Yeah, thank you. It's part of the Irish reality tunnel. I don't know whether it coincides with profane history or not. I got around to looking it up.
What is the title of the book? Well, we have it on tape, so I can definitely find it, but just for current benefit, what is the title of the book again that you recommended last night? The Psychobiology of Mind-Body
Healing.
And that's by...
Yeah, Lawrence Eugene Rossi.
Okay, now you're a hypnotist, correct? You studied hypnosis?
Yeah, I'm a fairly competent average hypnotist, nothing great. I'm a rank bungler compared to people like Steve Heller, for instance.
Because I've read a few books on hypnotism, books I've been fortunate enough to find in libraries that are fairly clinical and detailed techniques for advanced hypnosis, and they very clearly describe techniques that, in general knowledge, are considered not to be possible through hypnosis, as far as, say, for temporarily taking away a person's sense, any given sense, making them unable to walk, which all goes against the central idea of the current consensus reality of hypnosis and its abilities, that you can't force anyone to do anything against their will. And a lot of these techniques, what I was able to understand, were sort of circumventing the idea that this was against your will. And I guess basically what I'm getting at is the techniques of mind control in general, because you've discussed that pretty thoroughly in a couple of essays. Any new techniques you've heard of?
Well, there are a lot of people who think they can't be hypnotized. Erickson developed techniques, and his students have developed techniques which demonstrate pretty clearly that anybody can be hypnotized. Hypnotism is not, when it's most effective, it's not one person taking over another person. It's one person teaching another person how to use latent abilities they don't know that they've got. And when it's done that way, there's no resistance and there's no weird side effects. And that is the most effective way to do it, and it is proving more devastatingly effective every year, I would say. More and more papers published about Ericksonian hypnosis, and it's almost miraculous effects. In some cases, gesture means put miraculous in quotes. I became a hypnotist by accident. I was teaching various courses on psychic development, and I was including guided meditation or astral travel. There are different words for this particular type of mental training. I prefer to call it guided meditation because some people don't believe in astral travel, and I don't want to waste my time arguing with people about metaphors. And I found training people in guided meditation, I was hypnotizing them. And so I had to learn a lot about hypnosis to find out if what I was doing was safe or not. And I'm still learning more about hypnosis all the time. But I've gotten to the point where I agree with Gary Jeef that to be unhypnotized is a very rare thing on this planet. We're hypnotizing each other all the time. It's a continuous struggle between rival hypnotists.
Are you familiar with a local hypnotist here called Sam Moranto? He's syndicated across the country. He has a hypnotism show that airs every week, and it's basically a half-hour commercial for his tapes, which he will custom make for you if you come into his studio. And he has a church of hypnotism. He says it's God's work, and he's got a great tax-exempt status going on it.
Oh,
but we should go visit it. It's not too far from here, as a matter of fact. He's got a whole TV station in one little building, and he's been doing quite well with it. But he reminds me kind of like Herb Tarlick from WKRP in Cincinnati.
Polyester.
Yeah, exactly. He's that kind of character. He's on tomorrow night, as a matter of fact, right after Dallas.
What would you see as the quickest way to become unhypnotized?
Really? No, there is.
For those of us who are hypnotized.
On a fairly regular basis.
I saw Vandermeer.
The quickest way, not necessarily the safest way, the quickest way is to take all your money and buy a ticket to another country, all the surplus left over after you've bought the ticket, give away, and land in the other country with no money and no knowledge of the language. I think Crowley recommends that in one of his books, or something very akin to that.
Titles that Get Lost.
That's the quickest and most effective way. The quick and effective ways are often rather brutal and punishing, and not everybody survives them.
Yeah,
that's why
short path.
That's why there's so many long, complicated ways for the great majority of cowards who don't want to try the quick, easy ways.
Well, let's see here. Being one of the few people, and as far as I can tell, the only person to have seen J.R. Bob Dobbs within the last 2 years, any words of wisdom that we may not have heard that need passing along?
Yeah, the reports of his death were greatly exaggerated.
Well, tell us more.
Hmm?
Well, tell us more.
How's the stigmata doing these days? Still acting up?
Well, Bob is gradually recreating his earth form. This involves ferocious activity of the third nostril, and he's using a hell of a lot of dangerous sinus medicines, which makes him a bit wacky at times, but he's still Bob. He's still the keenest intellect on this planet and the saint of sails. In recreating his earth body, he's got to relive his earlier life, and that's why there are so many reports coming in from all over the country about housewives being seduced by aluminum siding salesmen.
I seem to have read that somewhere.
Yeah, well, that's Bob reliving his earlier life before he was illuminated by L. Ron Hubbard in that elevator in Palm Springs. Bob assures me that the most important lesson to pass on to all the subgenii at this time is to remember every day to meditate on the fact that God spelled backwards is dog, but Bob spelled backwards is still Bob. I think he's been doing too much speed and he's verging on delusions of grandeur at this point, but he's still Bob. He's still the wisest man I've ever met and the saint of sails.
Praise Bob.
Praise Bob.
Praise his damn ass.
Praise his damn ass.
Praise fucking Bob.
When I met Reverend Stein, I had a Bob t-shirt on, and I said to the Rev, recognize this face out of your past? He said, yeah, the son of a bitch hasn't paid me in 18 months.
No, the first time I met Stein, he was wearing a "Kill them all, let God sort them out" t-shirt.
Did you do Clash? Because I remember giving you one of those one time. That would have been good.
The first thing I said was, "Great shirt, man." He said, "Yeah, you can get them through Soldier of Fortune." Now I want to redo that with General Mad Mike Dobbs. You know, his grin face would be there with an eye patch and a beret, and it would be "Kill 'em all, let Bob sort of." Now, General Mad Mike Dobbs' slogan is, "True slack is an extra clip of ammo."
What?
True slack is an extra clip of ammo. He spends a lot of time in Malaysia.
You ever read Passage of Arms by Eric Ambler?
No.
God, that's such a great novel. It's about a Hindu working on a plantation in Malaysia for a German owner, and he's got this dream that someday he's going to get enough money to run a fleet of buses, and everybody will be so happy to have the buses because transportation is so primitive there. He's going to get rich from this fleet of buses. The only problem is how to get the money to buy the fleet of buses. And one day there's a lot of shooting nearby, and a bunch of rebels have been killed. And a week or so later, he's walking in the woods, and he comes upon this stash of arms hidden in a cave. So he very carefully covers it up with even more covering than it had before, and spreads more dirt around, and comes back daily to put new plants in, so it's very well concealed. And he meditates, and cogitates, and contemplates. And after 3 years, he goes to a Chinese businessman in town, and he says, you are known for your wisdom and your great knowledge of practical affairs, and I am a humble overseer on a plantation. I do not aspire to your level of knowledge of the world, and I come begging a few crumbs of your wisdom. And the old Chinese businessman says, very well, we will have tea. and they have tea for about 3 hours. And then the old Chinese businessman says, what was the wisdom that you required? And the Hindu says, I have a friend who found some guns, quite a large collection of guns, I would say about $1 million worth. And he is trying to figure out how he can sell them in such a way that he'll make a profit and he won't get in trouble with the law. And the old Chinese businessman says, I would know nothing of that because that's an illegal business, and I deal only in legal businesses. I have a cousin in Hong Kong, however. I will give you his phone number, and I will get 10% on the arrangement you make with him. And so he has to get in touch with the cousin in Hong Kong, and this invite more tea ceremonies and long rituals of politeness before they get down to business. And then they finally decide the best way to do it is to find an idiot. And so they go looking for an idiot, and they pick on this American tourist who's visiting the Orient with his wife, and they set him up to be the one to sign all the papers and to be responsible for the whole thing. And he and his wife end up in prison in Indonesia. The guns get through, and the Hindu makes a nice tidy profit. The Chinese businessman is very angry because his brother gets caught and gets shot. And a few weeks later, he sees the Hindu coming up the walk again, and they have another tea ceremony, and this Chinese is concealing his fury that this guy got his brother killed in this business deal. And the Hindu says, you are a man of the world, you have great wisdom, you know more than anybody in this part of the world. I come begging a few more crumbs of your wisdom. And the old Chinese, concealing his anger, says, what is it you require? And he tells him how to set up this bus line and make a huge profit out of it. He talks him into investing in the bus line as well as giving him his share of the money. He makes him a partner. And by the time he's through, you know this Hindu is going to be running the whole goddamn country in a while and replacing the shrewd old Chinese. And the Americans are just minor characters duped in this enormous conspiracy. It really shifts your view of what the world is, what's going on in this planet.
One thing we've all been searching for is a film entitled, I think it's called 60 Seconds in the Life of Robert Anton Wilson, or something along those lines. There is a documentary out?
There are several films, several videos of me.
I think I read it in Research or something like that. There was one done by the same people that did the Burroughs film, if I'm correct.
Possibly, that's photosynthesis in Mill Valley. They have a film of me in Ireland, in our home in Ireland, and they have a film of me doing my nightclub act in San Francisco. And I think they got one other film, but I don't remember what it is. There's a guy named Ralph Maldonado in Staten Island who has about 4 films of me he's selling through the mail, to the extent that he can find people who are fans of my works and send them his advertisements.
Well, we've seen the what's the one you have, Eric?
Giordano Bruno.
Yeah.
That's from
New York.
That's from Ralph Malatesta in Staten Island.
And you, of course, get your cut.
Yeah. I get 10% of the gross.
Not nearly enough.
No.
Not nearly. By gum.
That's what I get on the books.
So I think you just described this once before, but you get like paid a certain amount to produce the book in the first place, and then after that you get 10% on it.
Every contract is different, but a typical contract, you get a certain sum up front on signing the contract. That's because your outline is persuaded that it's a book they want to do.
Is that done through your agent?
Yeah, the agent submits for you. And when they decide they want to do the book, you get the contract, and on signing the contract within 30 days, you get X number of dollars. And then when you finish the book, you get X number of dollars, and when they publish the book, you get X number of dollars. And those 3 X's together make up what's known as the advance. And then you don't get any royalties until the book sells more than you got in the advance. And then you get 10% of the gross on all books sold.
Not nearly enough.
Yeah, do you find that equitable, or?
It's the best you can get in the market, the way it is.
But in the universe that
The
you
Hollywood
create,
look, I'm with Hollywood now. Where Hollywood writers get a much better deal all around.
Well,
But that's because they got a
gross
union.
points, not net points.
Novel writers do not have a union. Nobody has ever succeeded in organizing them. Hollywood writers have a union. They do a hell of a lot better. That's why I want to be a Hollywood writer.
does a young writer have to get an agent to get his stuff going, pretty much?
Barring a miracle, yes. Without a miracle, you absolutely need an agent.
Bet that was a lot of fun finding one at first.
Mm-hmm. They don't want you at first. You've got to be something of a success without an agent. You can't be a success without an agent.
Oh, here we
It's
go.
another catch-22.
Experience.
But you got to make a certain
Yeah.
amount of success without an agent before an agent will consider you seriously.
so how do we talk to your agent about getting, write a screenplay for the Diary of the
First, you got to convince them you really got the money and you're not just jacking them off.
Yes.
One way to do that is to put a certain amount of money in escrow.
Do you have more than one agent, like one agent for your tours and one agent for your books?
I have one agent for my books in the United States, one in England, and one in Germany.
And one in jail.
No. And I got 3 agents for my lectures. No, 4. 4 agents for my lectures, one in jail. How did you know about that?
It was inevitable in getting you here.
Well, I
We found
think it was one of the times I talked to you on the phone. I said, "Well, I just had a little bit of trouble with getting,
Oh,
information
yeah.
back from me." He said, "Yeah, well, it's understandable. He's in jail." I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah,
That would make it hard.
there's a great example of American justice in operation.
Then we were talking earlier about smokers, and I was thinking at the time, I had a very clear-cut example of that at the office I was working at, where, one day you could go into the lunchroom and smoke a cigarette. The next day, overnight, by the stroke of a pen, I was in a sense a criminal because I could not smoke in the lunchroom. Because they had instituted a policy locally of, a clean air policy for non-smokers, where smokers had to stand outside to have their cigarettes so as not to impair the breathing of the rest of.
They just need to
You
make
don't want to
2
violate
lunchrooms.
civil rights.
Excuse me?
They just need to make 2 lunchrooms.
Well, I don't work there anymore, so that's not the point. But I did, you think, well, you think it can't happen here. That feeling of overnight suddenly being an outcast, an unclean one.
Mm-hmm. And it's
unbeatable.
It's even more astounding when you live in Europe for a long time. They don't have any of those laws there. And you come back here and everybody's talking about the land of the free and the freest country in the world and so on. And Europeans are pretty conservative in most ways compared to Americans, but they would not put up with that kind of crap. Americans have always had a passionate desire to improve one another's morals.
Yeah, there's
It's
a
part of the
strong
Puritan inheritance from New England. The Puritans spread all over the country and brought the virus with them.
The meme, as it was.
Yeah, the meme.
Is there talks? Is there a way you can cure yourself in the culture?
Yeah, you got to keep trying to look at things from a rat's point of view, and a foal's point of view, and a fox's point of view, and a chicken's point of view, and if you can manage it, a tree's point of view. And gradually human prejudices get to seem more and more ridiculous to you.
say yes to brain machines.
Just say, oh yeah, where were you 2 weeks ago?
Brain machine on board.
That was one of yours, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I wanted to have one that said Pinko Faggot on board.
I like your idea of having like the.
Sounds like the start of an S&M cult.
I liked your idea of having like the way ambulances have ambulance written in reverse, so you can see in your review mirror. Watch out, Pink Boy.
Out of my way.
Out of my way, Pink Boy. Yeah.
A big sticker in reverse on the front bumper.
You don't drive, you sail.
What was that line of yours that you may own the whole world someday, so get in practice. Act like it's yours now.
That's right.
I know, it's...
I put it on the top of my head. I found that to be the best thing.
Definitely.
My head was pointed this the right way.
I'm putting warning labels on these.
Don't freebase with one that
Oh.
blow up in your face.
This could blow up in your hand.
You saw what happened to Ricky Nelson.
I was partying with a few people a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about freebase, and this one guy goes, "Freebase? No, never, never, never." An hour later, we were sitting around his kitchen freebasing. That was sick. It was sick.
That was my early experience.
I heard on cable news a couple of mornings ago that an Eastern Airlines flight from New York to Miami made a U-turn and came back because a stewardess reported that somebody was freebasing in the men's room, and the narcotics people took them right off the plane into custody.
Yeah,
Wow.
they got like four or five people off of that. Just checked their luggage and
Oh yeah, that's right.
found
yeah.
a bunch of cocaine.
Yeah.
Have you read Hunter Thompson's The Curse of Lono?
No,
About his
no.
trip to Hawaii?
No.
It opens up with him getting on the plane to go over, and the plane's delayed because someone in the restroom has trapped themselves in the restroom. Okay, and they finally get the guy out. He comes out and his hand is all blue. Okay, which means that he's been reaching down into the water closet. And Hunter Thompson, being of the intelligence he is, realizes there's only one thing that you'd reach down in there to get, and that's your little bottle full of the magic Ouija dust.
Mojo
Good
powder.
book, good book.
40 in Times, a London magazine that prints 40 in data clipped from newspapers all over the world.
I've seen one copy from about 5 years ago, and I need to get a subscription.
Oh yeah. Do it by
You were
all
saying,
means.
no, please. You were saying about 40 in Times.
Oh yeah, they had a story in there about 2 years ago about a journalist covering the Carter campaign, and he was in Palm Springs, Florida, and in a motel, nothing happening. Nothing was going to happen till the next day, and he turns on the television for some entertainment, and he gets a local newscast, and they're talking about the dog castrator of Palm Springs. And this is a monster who's going around castrating all these wonderful pedigree dogs of the rich people who live in Palm Springs. And then the newscaster announces they've got an eyewitness who's in the studio and is going to describe the dog castrator. And the eyewitness comes on and they ask him what did he look like, and the eyewitness says he was a speck. And the announcer says, you can't say that on television. You mean he was Hispanic? And the guy said, yeah, he was a speck, a real greaser, you know what I mean? Says, you can't say that. He appeared to be Hispanic to you. Now, you actually saw him castrating the dog? The guy says, yeah. I let out a yell. I said, hey, you goddamn speck, what are you doing to that poor dog? And the announcer says, well, you told us this Hispanic gentleman to stop what he was doing to the dog. He says, yeah, and then he turned around and he had these funny goggles on so I couldn't see his eyes. And he pulled out this really peculiar flashlight and he turned it on me. And I was like paralyzed for 30 minutes. And he finished castrating the dog and he went away and I couldn't move. It was only 30 minutes later I could move. And the editor of the Fortean Journal says, this comes from such a paper. He said, the author is Hunter Thompson, and we had best not place too much credence as this says. Mr. Thompson has a reputation as a wag. But that's going to get into UFO literature. I know it is. It's going to be reprinted by people less cautious.
Is another incarnation of the, what is it, Matthew Gasser?
What's so beautiful about that is that the word extraterrestrial isn't used. It's just the dark complexion and the magical flashlight and the goggles. The image is created, but it's not made explicit, you know.
It's like Los Angeles have like this big wacky UFO counterculture there. Like there's a big one here. They call themselves Ashtar Command.
Is that Jor-El and Kal-El and
Michael and Jor-El Legion? They know what planets they're from, and they're definitely here from the other planets to tell us.
Just a
and they have a whole line of fashion designer outfits to tell you about it.
Oh yeah, there's a gang like that in Berkeley. They all have blonde hair with dark streaks in it, and they all look vaguely bisexual. It's hard to tell the boys from the girls. And they all have this long blonde hair with the streaks, and they all claim they come from Venus. And there's this whole colony of them in Berkeley, and they all have weird names like Flower and Tree.
Sounds like they found some old sunshine.
Haven't come down yet.
The craziest cult I encountered in Berkeley, I never even found their name, but they seem to live in blankets. I don't know if they had clothes or not, but they never saw anything but the blankets. They were always wrapped in blankets.
White? Were they white blankets?
No, brown.
Oh.
Dark brown blankets. And they handed out leaflets announcing that the Lord was coming soon, and the Lord wanted you to stay high until he came, and the Lord wanted you to take the best drugs you could find and raise your consciousness so you could reach the vibration level to be ready to receive the Lord when he came. And all sex is forbidden because it drags you down to the earthly level. And I thought, boy, this has a great future ahead of it. All the people with sex problems who like drugs are going to flock into this thing eventually, you know, but I haven't heard of it in 10 years.
And the great thing is they'll never reproduce, though.
Yeah, that's what
slows down the growth of the
research,
cult.
they'll take over the world.
Well, the Mormons are going for that. Bring as many souls down from heaven as you possibly can.
Well, I love the sheer crass commercialism of being able to go back and buy your ancestors into Mormon heaven.
Yeah.
I mean,
You'll want
do
them
they
there.
have a choice in the matter?
Yeah. Grandpa was a heathen, but you can save him with
Indulgences 3 times.
Yeah, that's how they'll be able to, you know, if you're pretty much in a bad situation and go, well, we can go back in the past and change it so you can be in a good situation.
I have a long drive in.
Right.
I'll be wandering off here. Got the perfect shirt for that.
Let's see it.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
We'll see what tomorrow brings.
Yeah, let's have a party.
Of course.
Can I take 2 of these?
You don't need enough for one.
See you around. See you tomorrow.
You pick up,
That's a wicked hit I took.
No thanks.
This dope gear.
Okay.
Wow, we've been slamming Guinnesses right and left.
Yeah, we sure have.
It's a good beer. It's a good beer. I'm drinking enough.
No
I like the
beer
Foster's
comes near.
Lager.
That's their latest slogan, no beer comes near.
You can't buy beer, you can only rent it.
A few years ago, their slogan was "Black is beautiful."
Ever drink Old Peculiar?
No.
I think it's made by Trappist monks. It's real good. Trappist ale is real fine. Or Orvel, I think, is one that's bottled in Belgium, and it's real fine. Yeah, I like to go to the foreign beer section.
Mm-hmm.
On a vacation, go around the world via beer.
At Blunt Avenue Morals, we used to have a deal like that. They had 81 different beers.
Really?
Go around the
Huh.
world.
around the world in 81 beers.
Mm-hmm. I think that was the name of the contest, in point of fact. These are cards stamped each time.
Mr. Wilson, have you ever heard of any actual documented evidence of somebody really permanently going overboard with psychedelics? Like,
well, there's a rumor that floats around.
Aside from something like Art Linkletter's daughter, I mean somebody that's still alive but just...
You've heard the rumor about a guy who was traveling along with 100 hits of acid in his pocket, and he was pulled over by the police, and he was scared, so he ate the whole sheet of acid, and he became convinced that he was a glass of orange juice, and he didn't want anyone to come by him because he was afraid that they'd try to drink him. And he ended up in a rehabilitation center, government rehabilitation center for a few years. Have you heard that rumor? Because it's popular amongst everyone
I haven't
in high
heard
school.
anything. I was just wondering if there's any documented evidence.
Some people have wigged out after using acid.
Well, it was
whether they would have wigged out without the acid, nobody can
That's
say
what I was
for
wondering.
sure.
Yeah.
You can't say for sure, but there's definitely some people have shown a pattern of using more and more acid and then wigging out.
Huh.
Using more and more acid may be part of the wigging out process.
Yeah.
Just use enough.
I found after I did something.
That Grateful Dead album cover, Mark.
What?
That Grateful Dead album cover, that was
Well,
the most
basically, it was
enjoyable, the most
a little bit
entertaining
would get me to where I was.
LSD trip I've tried.
You know, I wouldn't have to take as much to trigger off me to feel psychoactive.
LSD light.
Yeah.
Who says you can't do it all?
Who says you
I
can't?
think people who do heavy doses constantly and flip out, or they're taking the heavy doses as part of flipping out. They're on some kind of fuel, things they don't know how to deal with.
Well, I liked Aldous Huxley's idea of the filter. My experience with LSD has been that, and I've done what I consider to be some pretty good LSD, is that there is still, if you so desire, an element of control of that filter. Would anyone else agree with that?
I'm not sure exactly what you're saying.
I don't know what Huxley's filter.
Well, that, we all, just in the same way as a reality tunnel, you filter the information that you're getting, and that LSD either expands that or shatters that. And I found that to a degree you can control the amount of influence it has on you. At least
Or is it like kind of like, to just let more, you can, it's like an f-stop.
Like, for example, I really haven't had a lot of visual hallucinations, and I'm kind of thinking that's by choice, to a degree.
Well, the thing is, I have, and the actual hallucinations are like of a religious kind of connotation, like a guy changing from the devil to Jesus Christ.
Well, you were raised Catholic, and you see, that's where it begins.
Could have been,
That's where it begins.
But it's the only.
I'm glad I was raised
change I've ever
Episcopalian.
really seen.
Cocktail masses.
It was just so real.
I had the first time I did psilocybin mushrooms. It was kind of like a religious thing. I did it with Barry and I both did. Jay lived, I did it at Barry's. Like, we ate mushrooms and we went swimming. It was nice. It was like I could feel I was starting to come on. I went home and we took this bike ride, and I started peaking on my bike. And I felt like I was going about 90 miles an hour. And I was like laughing my head off because I didn't think I was riding my bike. I was like totally like just a laughing person rocketing through space. And it was like, we got there in like no time at all. It was like, seconds. It seemed like seconds. We were there at this other place that was like 2 miles away. And I was like laughing the whole time.
The most visual, I take that back, the most visual experience I had was on magic mushrooms.
Yeah,
I was up in Sedona, and I was peeking and looked up at the very clear, crisp blue sky, and there were all these wonderful toy cloud airplanes flying across the sky.
I had a hallucination that was not induced by. I can't remember the word is.
How'd you know it was a hallucination?
Because I was at Papago Park and I watched the sunset near Holman, because that's how I would ride my bike home. So I like stopped. I was like looking at the clouds, and you know how they get kind of orange here and blue, and like the sun had just gone down, and all of a sudden, like it was like a surrealist thing of like all these eyes. I mean, tons of eyes, and then this one kind of eye behind this like cloud's face, and it was like a feline face